Hi, this is Morgan with the American SPCC. I'm here with one of our Trusted Parenting Network members, Dr. Greer Kirshenbaum. Welcome.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
It's great to have you. Yeah, Greer Kirshenbaum, PhD, is a neuroscientist, educator, doula, infant sleep professional, and author. She brings together decades of research experience with years of working with families to support families to nurture their babies' brains towards lifelong mental health. We're so happy you're here. And something you talk about a lot on our Parenting Resource Center and also through a lot of the resources you put out on your own is something called that you called nurturing presence. Could you tell us a little bit more about what that is, what it means?
For sure. Yeah. I think, to say nurture is beneficial for babies and parents is like a big statement to make, right? It's like, what is nurture? What exactly is it? Um, and and I've done I put a lot of thought into it. I've written about it that in my book coming out. But I love to get this idea out of about a nurtured presence because it's kind of like the foundation of all of it. Um, of all of the ways that we can sort of like build our babies' brains and their emotional health towards lifelong mental health, like you mentioned. So yeah, nurturing presence really is a it's a bit hard to explain, but it is like a way of being, right? It's not things that we can do, if we say these certain things or if we do these certain things, that's a nurturing presence. That's not true. It's a
Hmm.
really a way of that we need to integrate into ourselves as a way of being. And the biggest part of it is to be really accepting of the emotions that our babies have and children and their emotions, their feelings, and the amount of stress that they have in their body,
Hmm.
which is revolutionary, right? In a lot of ways, because
Yeah.
not the way things have been for a really, really long time.
I think one of the things you said that probably made a lot of parents or caregivers just like both perk up and maybe feel a little like, oh no, is that it's not something you can do or say. It is a way of being. That sounds so intimidating. It's like, where do you even begin?
Absolutely.
If you're having to kind of just like change just the way that you are.
Absolutely. And it is foreign for a lot of us as parents, right? And so yeah, I mean, I think the basic way of being is having sort of unconditional acceptance and connection with our babies. And what does that really mean? I think it means noticing what's happening inside of us when they do have emotions,
Mhm.
stress, right? And I think most of the time it's the negative feeling emotions like anger, sadness, frustration that can kind of bring up rejection in us, right? Like when our babies are feeling that, sometimes we might go to that place of like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to see it. I don't want to, I don't, want anything to do with it, right? And a lot of us were raised that way, right? Where
Mhm.
like we don't want to, we don't want to be around you when you're stressed, when you're angry, when you're sad, and over time, that type of presence, which is more of a rejecting kind of dismissive presence, can really have an impact on how we perceive our own emotions, perceive our own stress, and then how we can actually regulate it, connect to other people, and succeed in almost every domain of life, right? It's very foundational for mental health.
Yeah. And I think that most parents probably have in mind that they do love their children unconditionally,
Mm.
but maybe have conditioned it in ways that are unintentional. They don't realize, like you use the word rejection. So
Yes.
what are some of the ways that, you know, all of the most well-intentioned caregivers that would describe their love as unconditional maybe are unintentionally conditioning their love?
Yeah, it's really a great question. And I think it's a really good point you make. This is no individual's fault or, no one's to blame. This is like a
Right.
societal condition that we have,
Mhm.
right? You even see in the grocery store, I experienced this many times as with my son. He's having an explosive reaction to not buying something or, whatever it is. And I'm handling it in my way, and people will come up and try to like distract him to get him to stop crying, or, tell a joke or like something. And, I'm like, I get it. Like everyone in society is conditioned to like just distract, banish, repress these big
Mm.
feelings that we have, because a lot of times we just haven't had models of how to work through them and really help people and help each other through them, right? So much of adult healing is getting back in touch with those feelings, and our stress, and figuring out how to connect to other people to process them, right? Because it started when we were babies. So big point to make. It's like every parent I truly know is absolutely doing their best, my own included. And I didn't have that experience of nurtured presence, right? So completely understand. But yeah, I think that the big ways it's done are, you see, oftentimes in the playground kind of thing, a baby will like fall and slip, and their parent and they'll start to cry or whine or whatever it is, or reach for their parents to pick them up. And the parents are like, no, you're fine. You're not bleeding. Shake it off, move on. It's
Yeah.
okay. Right? It's like, you haven't broken a bone, you're not bleeding. Stop it. I don't want to see this. Right? And we kind of, our society believes like, if you don't pay attention to all of it, all of the negative feelings and stress, then that's going to actually going to help that baby develop more resilience and
Mhm.
independence and all this kind of stuff. And the opposite is true, right? And so the alternative take on that would be, getting down to your baby or child's eye level and saying, like, I have this nurturing presence here. Like, everything you feel is welcome here. Like, I am always here for it. I'll talk
Mhm.
about that a little bit more later, because we can't really always be there for it,
Yeah.
because it is a lot. But the alternative would be that, right? Like, I see that you're feeling really hurt right now. I see you're crying. I'm
Yeah.
wondering how you're feeling. Um, and they might just need a quick hug and that validation that you understand what's going on for them, and then they'll be fine to go back and play and do the things
Yeah.
that they want to do, right?
Yeah, and I think you've given some good examples for like, kids in the grocery store and the playground. And but you also talk about it actually nurturing presence starting in pregnancy. So
Yep.
when the baby's in the womb, which is really interesting. Could you tell us a little more about that? Starting from the
Yeah.
beginning.
100%. So, I mean, I think with all the recommendations I give throughout pregnancy, birth, infancy, it's take what works for you and leave what doesn't, because we're all different, and these are just all things that one could do. I had a pregnancy where I was going through a lot, right? And I wasn't able to do all of these things. And so I completely understand they're not always for all of us. But if you are in a good place where these things feel good, you can start to kind of see and care for your baby on an emotional level there. So the first thing you can do is you can start singing and talking to your baby. So usually the mother or pregnant person, they'll hear their voice the most, because baby's always there. But the other parents, partners, important people in the baby's life, they can intentionally sing and talk to the baby too, right? So when I was pregnant, my husband read a book to me and the baby every single night. So my son could hear his voice for like long periods of time every day throughout the pregnancy. It's like 16 to 20 weeks, around then is like the time they can start to hear. Um, and babies will be calmed by familiar songs when they're born. So if you're singing a certain song during pregnancy, the baby will recognize it and be calmed by it when they're born. And that could also be a song that you play. It doesn't necessarily have to be singing, but once they're born, they really do want to hear your singing voice, no matter how
Yeah.
bad it
Yeah.
is. Mine's not very good. Um, yeah, so that's really helpful. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
my daughter's favorite music is also my favorite music, thankfully. I'm like,
that's nice.
you play what you like and then that's what they learn.
Exactly, exactly.
Show tunes puts her to sleep. It's funny.
I sing my son show tunes as well. I sing him Les Mis mostly to.
Oh, it's so funny.
Mhm.
So, okay, so from pregnancy then to birth, obviously it sounds like singing would be another way to continue. what
Yeah,
are ways that then you, like, can continue to build on that nurturing presence in the beginning stages of their life?
for sure. So this was like one of the biggest takeaways I would give to my birth clients, because I think again our society's kind of set up birth, to be not not so welcoming to to have this nurturing presence. And I don't want to generalize because people have all different kinds of births and cultures and customs and all this kind of thing. But a lot of stuff I was seeing in Canada and the US where the baby was born, tons of people immediately come in. The whole family comes in right away. The baby's wrapped up. And, the person who's just given birth, like, may or may not even have had it more than a couple minutes holding their baby, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe they have an hour first and then, um, so sort of like there's also nothing wrong with that if that's what is culturally, you know, wonderful for you and like you've thought it out and like that's your choice. That's great. It just doesn't have to be like the default thing that you
Mhm.
do because I feel like that's often the case from what I've seen. Um, but yeah, to have a nurturing presence at birth, really seeing that time as like a time to begin this like full acceptance of your baby as like a full person, right? And so
Mhm.
protecting that time, like once baby's born, having the parents or the important people in the baby's life, like be there in like a really quiet way, holding the baby, talking directly to them, tell them how you feel that you've met them, how you feel about spending your life with them and getting to know them and just pretending that they're not even pretending because they really are a whole being who can really understand everything on their own level. Um, so yeah, imagine like meeting a person for the first time and just really be there, right? Be like, I'm here for you when you're sad, when you're mad, when you're happy, when you're joyful, and spending lots of like slow time in the beginning, right? And sometimes I've offered this to my clients and they're like, yeah, we thought we'd take like an hour and we just wanted to spend 3 whole days with our baby before everybody else met them.
Mhm.
Some people are like, we spent 5 hours, right? If we hadn't, considered it, we would have probably invited people in right away. And it really does set a great tone for the relationship and for developing this nurturing presence going
Yeah.
forward. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then, um, and you kind of mentioned that we would get into this before, but as the child grows and the needs and desires become more complex, you mentioned like sometimes still having like different boundaries, kind of, and like knowing when to lean in versus when to maybe draw a line. Um, could you talk a little bit more about like building wisdom in that area?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that in the end, with a nurturing presence, all of the information you need is in the relationship between you and your baby or
Mm.
child, right? You don't need any other instructions other than to get supported in being present in that relationship and understanding like what your baby or child's communication is and responding to it in like a really accepting way essentially. And so yeah, when babies are little, like you typically under about 12 months, often they'll just want to be picked up, held chest to chest right away, co-regulated and brought back to like a feeling safe in their body. As they get a little older, like we can emerge like between 12 and 18 months. And again, every baby's different. Um, Sometimes they will have like a feeling. It's sort of like we think of as a tantrum, right? They'll have feelings of anger initially. And if you do say like, "Oh, I'm right here. I'm here for a hug," and maybe they'll push you away, they'll kick, they'll need space, right? And so you just take that information again, right?
Yeah.
It's like, "You're telling me you don't want me near you. I get it." And then you can kind of just sit near them, take some deep breaths yourself, trying to get as calm, regulated as you can be, and let them know, like, I love you, and all of your feelings. I'm right here. As soon as you're ready, I'm here. Um, and the second phase is typically like sadness of the tantrum, right? And then once they move past anger into sadness, then they'll often want a hug, um, and some of that closeness to feel regulated again. Um, but yeah, humans always were wired for interconnectivity and co-regulation. I wouldn't want a person of any age to be told or to think like whenever you're having negative feelings or stress that you need to go isolate yourself and sit in
Yeah.
a room alone. um, we always need others, right? And to different degrees, right? Obviously, like as we grow, our brains develop, we're able to regulate a lot more. But when something big happens and we do have those big feelings, they're part of us, and we really do benefit from learning that we can help and get help with them.
This is great. I think lots of really helpful tips for parents. It's a long journey, like you said. It's not like learning certain lines for different situations. It's
Yeah.
really a big shift in mindset. So, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.